Hey everyone, we're going to switch gears and we're going to start talking about Henry V. So I wanted to just create a short video where I kind of talk about Henry V, give you some background to the characters in the play, and then also what you're going to do is you are going to cast each character that I describe. So you're going to imagine that you're creating a Hollywood blockbuster movie, and there are 6 characters I'm going to describe, and just based on the description of the characters, I want to know who you would cast for each character. Now, I've created this video, but it's basically, you can also read the notes that I put in Canvas as well that describes each character. And you don't need to start reading the play. All you need to do is basically cast the following 6 characters and tell me why, if you are making this into a Hollywood blockbuster movie, why you would cast those characters. You're going to, in addition, attach a picture for each character as well. So the one thing you should know about Henry V is Henry V is epic. It is a great play. It's readable, it's accessible, and while I know Shakespeare is hard, I will guide you through the play to make sure you are successful. Now, to give you a little bit of background, first of all, what Henry V is, it's a play about 3 things. It's a play about rhetoric, it's a play about war, and it's a play about politics. And though obviously the main character is Henry V, so let me give you some background on Henry V. So the play before Henry V is obviously Henry IV. It's broken up into 2 parts, Henry IV Part 1 and Henry IV Part 2. So in Henry IV, Henry V is called Hal. And in that play, his father, Henry IV, is trying to put down a huge civil war that's broken out in England. And while his father is trying to put down this civil war, his son, who's going to be heir to the throne, who is Hal, he's out drinking in the bars, hanging out with the common people, and making jokes. And so Henry IV is really frustrated with his son because he's looking at his son, he's saying, what is my son doing? He should be helping me, win the Civil War, becoming King of England, and yet here he is, he's out there drinking in the bars and hanging out with the common man. And Hal is doing something genius here because the common people love Hal, right? They think that Hal is one of them. They think he is one of the common person's kings. And Hal hangs out with this other big fat drunk knight called Falstaff. And when Hal and Falstaff get together, they are loads of fun. Falstaff may be one of the most comedic characters in all of Shakespeare. And so this makes the common people love Hal even more. And eventually, in Henry IV, Part 1 and 2, Hal sheds his reckless past, joins his father, and helps to put down the rebellion and the Civil War. And eventually, at the start of our play, he's become King of England. And what Hal is doing is something genius, because what he's doing by hanging out with the common people is he's getting to know how they think. He's getting to earn their respect. And the question is, how will that play when he now becomes King of England at the start of Henry V? So at the start of the play, what Henry V is going to do is he's going to decide to go to war in France. And some say it is a reckless and foolish decision. So based on that description, I want you to imagine, who would you cast as Henry V, right? Who do you imagine to play with him? Now, Henry V is a young king. He's good looking. He's probably no much older than 30. But I want to know, who do you imagine would have the traits that would play a good Henry V? Now, the second character is Thomas of Exeter. And Thomas of Exeter is much older than Henry, but he's really basically just the advisor. He's the one that gives Henry advice. He's sort of the political advisor who will guide him through the transition from being a young prince to now being King of England. So who do you imagine would play the advisor to Henry V? And then Shakespeare and Henry V also cast the common man. So Falstaff, who's very popular in Henry IV, Part 1 and 2, in Henry V, he dies early on in the play. But there are 2 characters, Bardolph and Pistol, and both of them were hanging out with Hal and Falstaff in the bars. They both loved Hal. Hal knew them. He drank with them. And these are kind of 2 of the characters that are kind of the common man. Bardolph, Henry knew a little bit better. Pistol was kind of a guy who was kind of was the lackey, always kind of latched on. But these are the men that will end up going to war for Henry and kind of represent the common man. So I want you to imagine, who would you cast for Bardolph and Pistol? Now, on the flip side, we know that Henry is going to war, and he's going to war against France. So there are three characters that I want you to imagine you'd cast. The first one is Charles V, who is the King of France. Now, Charles is an old king, right? He's probably as old as, say, Henry's father, Henry IV, was. He's old, and he's wise, and he knows that Henry is going to war. He doesn't think that Henry can beat them, but he does not think that we should underestimate Henry. And so I want you to imagine, who would you cast as the King of France? Now, his son is the Dauphin, and the Dauphin is the same age as Henry V. He's young. He's going to be king when his father dies, and he is a bit reckless. He also, however, underestimates Henry. He thinks that Henry is a fool for going to war. He can't beat the English. They can't beat the French, right? So he thinks Henry is young and reckless and foolish. And here's the reality, is that the Dauphin might be right, that Henry might be getting into a war that he cannot win. So I want you to imagine, who do you see being the rival of Henry V? And then the last one is Catherine, because when Henry goes to war, she's kind of the love interest, right? If Henry is going to war, right, there's always a love interest. Catherine is smart. She speaks French, right? She's very intelligent. She's the one that actually, later on, she'll speak truth to power. So I wonder, who would you cast as Catherine? So all you have to do for this week, I'm just giving you some background into the play. There's notes on Canvas you can also read as well to kind of get a little more background. But basically all you have to do is, I want you to imagine, who would you cast for these characters and why?